Well, welcome to the Holy Land. It's really special to be here. I'm really excited to be here. Today, we're going to be doing a walking tour around the old city of Jerusalem. So many amazing things to see. We're going to be looking at the gates. There's 8 gates around the old city of Jerusalem. These are original from the time of Solomon, Hezekiah, ancient stones. These stones right here, if they could speak, guess what they would tell you? These rocks have seen it all. They have seen a lot. These are steps that Jesus walked on. They have seen 3,000 to 4,000 years of history. We're going to be looking at some of the ancient city walls. We're also going to be seeing something very, very special mainly towards the end of the video, because it's just south of the Jaffa Gate a little bit, but we're going to be seeing the place where Jesus was tried before Pilate. All of the evidence is there. It's absolutely unbelievable. What the Bible says, what the archaeology says, just matches up perfectly. So I'm excited to walk these walls and to share this with you. And if you're watching my video, we invite you to join in on the trip with us. It's going to be real special to just walk around these walls and see all of the gates and then see some amazing discoveries along the way. Okay, so you guys ready? We're going to be just starting here. We are on the northwest corner of the old city of Jerusalem. So let's go ahead and start here. You can see the smaller stones. Okay, this is from the time of Suleiman the Magnificent. So these walls here are only 500 years old. So what's amazing, I like to tell people, if you're from America and you go back 200 years, wow, that's old, right? If you're in Europe, and you go back, you can go back 1,000 years, and I mean, there's a lot more history there in Europe. But in Jerusalem and Israel, you're talking about at least 4,000 to 5,000 years of history. So when you talk about something that's 500 years old, it's like, oh, okay, that's relatively new. But down below, you can see some of these ancient stones down here, and you can even see some of the bedrock. Okay, so those are going way back in time. So again, you can look out over here. You see the ancient bedrock there? Now also what they would do is all the stones they would quarry. They had quarries in the area, and so they would quarry and dig up these limestones. Now the thing about limestone that's amazing is that when it's in the ground, it's fairly soft. It's still hard, but you can chisel it, you can work it really quite well. But when you get it out of the ground and then expose it to the weather and the sun, it will harden up. So it's really an amazing building material. And also what's amazing is when you think about it, Jerusalem is built on a hill. It's a mountain. And the mountain is bedrock. In fact, a lot of Israel is limestone. So God in his sovereignty chose to preserve all of this. So he made the building material, all of the location, everything, so that this could be preserved. I tell people, if you are going to discredit the Bible, then what you have to do is wipe Israel off the face of the earth. Because you can go to Israel, you can be here, and you can see all this stuff. It's here. I mean, the rocks cry out. It's all here. All the evidence is here. And as we tour the Holy Land, we'll be talking about, one thing we'll say is there's one thing built upon top of another. When you see one thing built upon top of another going way back in time, these are historic, accurate sites. So it's just absolutely amazing. Okay, so we're coming to our first gate here. So this is the new gate. Okay, why is it called the new gate? Because it's the newest gate in the city. Okay, this was built in about 1889. Okay, it was opened up and for access into the city. It's not that impressive of a gate. I mean, it looks nice, but some of the gates are really impressive that we'll be looking at. The Damascus Gate it's the most elegant gate that you can see. But anyway, this is the new gate. And so do you guys know the layout of the city? It has 4 quarters. This section here is the Christian quarter, and then down is the Muslim quarter. Then over going south is the Jewish quarter, and then in the far southwest is the Armenian quarter. Okay, so this is going into the Christian quarter right here, okay? All right, so we're going to continue on our way. This place right here is the northern part of the city of Jerusalem. The old city was always the most vulnerable. Why? Because the ground goes up, and so armies always would attack from the north, coming down. So the northern gates are the most fortified, and the walls are the most fortified. Now, these walls here that you're seeing today were built by Suleiman the Magnificent. So he was during the Ottoman period, and so the Ottoman period was from about the 1500 to about 1917, right in there. And so he went ahead and rebuilt these. So you can see the stones are smaller. The original city had stones that were bigger. Here in a bit, we're going to be going by the Eastern Gate, and we're going to be seeing stones that go back to the time of Solomon. Now, I should mention that these walls on the northern side, during the time of Christ, the walls didn't exist. Okay, so during the time of Christ, the walls would go to about where the Jaffa Gate is, going in. Then they would go past where the Church of the Holy Sepulchre is, which was Golgotha. The evidence is absolutely overwhelming that the Church of the Holy Sepulchre is where Golgotha was. Because we can go back in time, one thing built upon another, and all of the evidence is there. Okay, so anyway, so these walls here didn't exist during the time of Jesus. About 10 years after Christ died on the cross, then the walls were added. So now the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, which is Golgotha, is inside. But in the time of Christ, it was outside the city walls, because it says in Hebrews that Christ was crucified outside the city walls. Let's just kind of go down through here. It's really pretty.
What were those little strips in the wall we see?
Okay, yeah, okay, that's great. So, great question. Yeah, you guys feel free to ask all the questions you want. So the slits in the wall, what are they for? They're for defense purposes. So on the other side, they're like at a triangle. They go like this. So people inside have access to shoot arrows. Those from the outside, it's hard to hit a little slit, right? Right. But those from the inside, so it's for defense purposes. And then we'll see most of the gates will have the slits above them. And then most of the gates, you're going to go in and they're going to have like an L shape. Some are a double L. What's that do? It slows the attackers down. And that gives more time for those defending the gates to attack and defend.
How about those stones right there, stones there?
What about these round stones and these other things? Great question. Okay, so understand that Jerusalem has been attacked. It has been torn down around 40 times. So it's been destroyed, rebuilt around 40 times throughout its history. So when the city was destroyed, a lot of stuff would be just torn down, okay? Rather than go out and get new stone and quarry new stones, what do? We just use the stuff that's here. So because the walls were built quite rapidly by Suleiman the Magnificent, not him, but his workers, then they just grab stuff and just put it in. So what you're going to find in the walls is a myriad of different stones from different time periods. Okay, so yeah, why would a round stone be placed there? Well, it just fit there. It was laying out here, and so we just throw it in there. Now, one thing about a lot of this newer construction is they use mortar. But Herod the Great, when he built, did not use any mortar. We'll be talking about Herod the Great, but he was an absolutely phenomenal builder. And so he built everything with such precision that he didn't use mortar.
There's this stone that's cut at a 90 there, going around another stone that was at different time periods.
Yeah, so we'll be talking about the time periods, the stones, and what that's called. We'll step over here. That's called a boss, and we're going to be seeing this at the eastern gate as well. But we're going to be looking at, let's find one here. Okay, right here, I guess we can see one. Okay, so you can see this got a little boss right here. The boss is what they'll carve out. You can see the boss there. You see how it's kind of flat, and then the stone will protrude out a little bit. So the farther back you go in time, the rougher the stones were. The closer you get to Herod the Great, they were really precision, really nice. We'll be seeing some, I'll point some out to you. But so like this stone right here, we know that that's going back pre-Hasmonean. The Hasmonean period was from about 165 to about 63 BC. Okay, and then Herod comes on the scene in about 37 BC to about 4 BC. Herod the Great is the one who enlarged the Temple Mount platform, rebuilt the temple, and did an amazing amount of construction projects all throughout Israel that we'll be seeing. Caesarea Maritime, the caves of Machpelah, the oaks of Mamre, Masada, the fortress at Masada, Herodian, that was named Herodium. So anyway, his stones were different. So we know that these stones here that protrude way out, like this one right up here, you can see the boss and see how that protrudes way out. We know that that's going back probably to around at least 400 to 500 BC. Okay, so that stone would probably have witnessed, like Josiah, the latter period of the kings. Here's a great example here. So this right here, these stones right here, they're going to go back probably at least 500 BC. Okay, then you can see this stone right here. This here is a Hasmonean stone. The Herodian stones would be finer and flat. So this would be Hasmonean. The farther they went through time, they got the processing of it down a lot better, so they would make them smoother and prettier. And of course, Herod, everything he did was just golden. It was really prestigious. Let's step over here real quick. So here's your first test. What period is this from? Whose kind of stone is this? Herod. This is Herodian. See how it's nice and flat? And you got your boss here. So that's Herodian stone. Yeah, and then of course, here's a great example. So here you've got one here. What time period are we looking at here? Okay, this is before then the Hasmonean. Some of these stones here are also from the period of Hezekiah. Hezekiah fortified the walls. We'll be talking about that later, but anyway, this could be from the time of Hezekiah. Those are ancient.
Todd, is this the mortar of when they rebuilt?
Yeah, the mortar was when they rebuilt. Then of course, since Suleiman built it, then it has been, I guess, taken care of. When Israel became a nation in 1948, then of course they are going to preserve a lot of this stuff. So they're going to fill in, and some of this mortar you're going to see is recent, just to protect the walls. So now we are approaching the Damascus Gate. What we're going to do now is we're going to kind of just walk up here and get a view of this. Then we're going to walk down and I'm going to show you something really interesting, okay? Okay, so now we're looking at the Damascus Gate. Okay, you can see it's really quite prestigious. Now, why is it called the Damascus Gate? Why do these gates have their names? Why do we have Jaffa Gate? Why do we have the Damascus Gate? Why do we have the Eastern Gate? Why do we have these? A lot of them are named after the direction to which you would go. So this right here, what direction are we facing? North. Which direction is Damascus? North. What happened on the road to Damascus by the Apostle Paul? That's where he got his vision, right? And was converted. So right through here in the street right there, that would go to Damascus. It's also called the Shechem Gate because on the way to Damascus was the main travel route, and Shechem was on that travel route. Okay, a lot happened at Shechem. Anyway, so this is the Damascus Gate. And so in the time of around 132 AD, something very significant happened in Jerusalem. Very, very significant. Listen very carefully. Is in 132, the Jews had an uprising again. So the Jews regularly would have these uprisings to try to get their country back. So they had this uprising against Rome, and they did get a lot of their country back. Okay, so then the Romans in response send more legions and they come in. So at that particular period in time, the Roman emperor was named Hadrian. Okay, so he came in and he's going to once and for all get rid of these Jews. He is sick and tired, and Rome is sick and tired of these Jews. They keep uprising. They're a rebellion in their kingdom that will not stop. And so he comes in, destroys the city, just totally annihilates it. And he rebuilds the city. And he names it, instead of Jerusalem, he names it Aelia Capitolina, totally different name. And then he renamed the country Palestine. Why? Because Palestine is a derivative of the Philistines. So his goal was to absolutely erase any connection the Jews had to their homeland. All right? So this was the beginning of the Cardo. The beginning of the Cardo. The Cardo was the heart of the city. So he rebuilt the city. There was actually two Cardos. There was a Cardo Maximus and a Cardo Minor. Okay, the Cardo Maximus was the main one where Golgotha was, where the early Christians had set that aside. Guess what Hadrian did? He built over it a large platform, and then he built a temple to Jupiter and to Aphrodites over where Golgotha was, and we have eyewitness accounts of that. Eusebius, Jerome, that saw this. Okay, so he built this platform, and part of the platform can still be seen today. Anyway, so this was a gate. Now this is not the original gate that Hadrian built. Step over here once. Can you see this arch right here? This was a three-arched, magnificent gate. This was one of the arches. Then in the middle, you had a big, huge arch. Then on that side, you had another small arch. And of course, you can see down alongside there, you can see some of those columns and stuff.
When was that dated?
Okay, this would be about 135 AD. And of course, then you can see, we'll walk part way in here. This is a L shape, double L shape. Why? It's going to slow down attackers. Once again, this northern part was the most vulnerable of all of the city. That's why this has a lot of these slits so that they can defend it. Now this gate is the most guarded gate of the city. So let's just step in here and go part way in here and to show you. Now, what section of the city are we going into now? This goes into the Muslim section. Okay, so this is used more by Muslims. Okay, so once again, you can see this is going to be a double L. So attackers, then they're slowed down. They're slowed down. Double L, double L. Once again, this is the most vulnerable part of the city, so we're going to have a double L to slow down. Then we can attack from all kinds of areas. We can slow down attackers. Okay, so let's step right over here. So what road are we on? The Cardo. Now what's amazing is that the city today retains the same layout that Hadrian rebuilt the city to. So we have a main Cardo that goes here. It goes by Golgotha, Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Then it goes down, and then it will come out just a little south of today, the Zion Gate. All right? But right up here, see where you go down? The Cardo split. You had your Cardo Maximus, which is the main one. It goes that way. The Cardo Minor goes this way. Where's it going to go to? Down in front of the Temple Mount. What does Hadrian build on the Temple Mount? He builds another temple. Another temple. So once again, Hadrian is totally erasing any Jewish worship, any Jewish presence, renames the city, and he bans the Jews from coming into the city for quite some time. So anyway, this would be the Cardo Maximus. There'd be a plaza out over here, big plaza, and then the Cardo Maximus goes that way, Cardo Minor goes this way, and then it will kind of do a curve.
Everything we've been walking on is dated to when exactly?
Okay, good question. That's a great question. So the level of Jerusalem today is not the same level that it was during the time of Jesus or in 135 AD. Do you know what a tell is? What is a tell? A tell is something that is built up over time, different layers of civilizations, one built upon top of another that forms a rise, a tell. Jerusalem is a tell. So when you go down, you go older. So the original level, that's why you can see those arches were way down lower. The original level is down about maybe 15, 20 feet. So it was lower. It was lower. Now the Cardo, we'll be seeing part of that. Now that is down at the street level, but they had to go down to excavate it. Okay, well, let's continue on our way. Isn't this amazing? Shalom, shalom. Toda, toda. So once again, you can see that that's way down lower, right? You can see where the original level was. How deep do you think that is? Maybe 15, 20 feet? Okay, so all this is newer. So to get back to the Jerusalem of the time of Jesus, you have to go down, and they have. Okay, well, let's continue on our journey here. We've got a lot to see. It's all amazing. Okay, we're gonna drift right through here. What do you see here? King Solomon's quarries, Zedekiah's cave. So down underneath the city is where they quarried out a lot of rock for building the city. Now, when Solomon probably did it, these walls weren't here. So at that time, it was just open ground to quarry. Then he used that for building the Temple Mount platform and the temple. Well, let's step on over here. And one of the fascinating things here, what direction are we pointing? What direction is that way? What's the most vulnerable part of the city? The north. What do you have here? Bedrock. So this has witnessed all the history of Jerusalem right here. This is the bedrock. And upon it is built the walls. So right down under here, it's not open now, but down under here is then where they quarried a lot of these limestone blocks. It goes way back in. It's huge. It's absolutely huge inside there.
And you mentioned Zedekiah.
It has two names, Solomon's Quarries and then Zedekiah's Cave. The reason it's called Zedekiah's Cave is because it's believed that he hid out in here when the Babylonians were sieging the city. And then he tried to escape, was going down to Jericho. They caught him, and then he's the one who they killed his family before his eyes and then took his eyes out. Once again, you have all this bedrock right here. Now, so it's quite fascinating here. Like I said, you can see all this bedrock. That's all bedrock. That's all original. That's been here since the beginning of time.
So all that's natural?
That's natural. Yeah, God made that. Yeah, that's what God made right there. That's his construction. What you can see here is this whole country is limestone. Now, it's all not like this, but this city and a lot of the country, it has so much limestone in it. And so it lasts forever. The history has been written in the land. It's written here. It's written here. You can't get it out. Even though different emperors and rulers have tried, it's here. It's here. That's why all of the sites that you see, most of them have churches over them. There you go. Put your hands on it. And like I say, virtually all of the conquering armies came from what direction? The north. These rocks have seen it all. They have seen a lot. The stones cry out. The stones of Jerusalem cry out. So you really get quite a history lesson as you walk around the city. Okay, so we'll pause here, and we have another gate. We have another gate. This is Herod's Gate. Most of the gates that you're going to see today were rebuilt by Suleiman the Magnificent in around 1540. Some of the gates already did exist before him, though. Okay, like the Eastern Gate, the Jaffa Gate, the Dung Gate. Those gates existed, but he built other gates. This gate right here is called Herod's Gate. It was named so because some thought that Herod's son, Antipas, that one of Herod's sons, he had his house in here. So it was called Herod's Gate for that purpose. This gate has been rebuilt here recently. You can see the mortar and the blocks are finer. So that original part there is not from the time of Suleiman, but been repaired, renovated here recently. All right, let's continue on. So here we just have some stones that are just kind of placed out here just for decoration purposes, but they're old stones. How deep do you think these stones go into the wall? These walls here are several feet thick. Herod's walls were really thick. We'll see at the southern stairs area some of the Herodian stones and construction that are massive, off the charts, unbelievable. What you will see around the city walls, in many places, you see at the Jaffa Gate, different places, you'll see writing. Does anybody know what language that is? It's Arabic. Because it's the Ottoman Empire, and it's Suleiman the Magnificent that's rebuilding, so he had a lot of these things carved. Yep. The rocks could cry out. Okay, so we just walked the northern section of the old city. Now we are on what side? We're on the eastern side. East was the orientation. Things pointed east. Why? Because that's where the rising of the sun took place. So to be oriented was to face the east. Okay, so that's why the temple faced the east, the rising of the sun. So now we're going to be walking the eastern section of the old walls of Jerusalem. All of the sides have amazing things. This side has some unique things. It has the Eastern Gate. We're going to be walking right along the Temple Mount platform where the original temples once stood. We'll be seeing stones that go back to the time of Solomon, Hezekiah, that era. Now they have done some excavations along through here. There's a number of spots. It hasn't been published in archaeology yet. Archaeology, when you do a discovery, for it to be authenticated, verified, they will publish it like a book, okay? But along this area here, they have excavated and they have learned that it really appears that the city walls that are here now weren't here during the time of Jesus. So just on the other side of us up here, just up a ways, is the pools of Bethesda. Okay, the pools of Bethesda originally were made by Hezekiah. They were big, huge pools, like big, huge swimming pools, but they were for purification purposes. And you remember in John 5, the man that had been sick for 38 long years and Christ healed him at the pools of Bethesda? That would be just right on the other side here. Anyway, those pools, it's believed that during that time that the walls didn't include the pools of Bethesda. Archaeology along here has shown that. The next gate that we're going to be coming up to is the Lion's Gate. The Lion's Gate. So again, you can see some of these archaeological digs that they've done through here. So right up ahead of us is the Lion's Gate. Why do you think it is called the Lion's Gate? We'll tell you here in a moment. So why is this called the Lion's Gate? Do you see 4 lions up there? It's believed that Suleiman the Magnificent had a dream wherein if he didn't build the walls, that a lion would eat him. It's also called Stephen's Gate because some believe that Stephen in Acts 7 was martyred here. The evidence suggests more that it was by the Damascus Gate. But this is called the Lion's Gate or Stephen's Gate today. And now we're going to be getting close to the Eastern Gate. And then starting up here is going to be a Muslim cemetery. Okay, so this is a Muslim cemetery now that we're entering. Now, why do you think that they built a cemetery here? Okay, because right up here is the Eastern Gate. And according to prophecy, Jesus goes through the gate. So in order to supposedly stop that prophecy, they blocked up the gate, and it's been blocked up several times, then opened several times, but they blocked it up, built a cemetery, because is a cemetery clean or unclean for a Jew? Unclean. So therefore, we're going to block the wall, we're going to put a cemetery, because the Messiah then can't get through and won't walk through somewhere unclean. However, Jesus already did enter the gate, the Messiah, and whatever he touches is clean anyway. Nothing to Jesus is unclean. We're going to see some really special things. So the Temple Mount platform is going to be beginning out over here and going way down to the corner down here. Herod the Great, in about 19 BC, he enlarged the Temple Mount platform. Little did he know sovereignly what he was doing, but God sovereignly had that done so that the Temple Mount could hold the mass population of the early church. How big did the early church get within several months?
5,000.
Okay, so at 3,000 at Pentecost, we have 5,000 as a result of the blind man being healed. So we have a church of 8,000. This Temple Mount platform, it can handle hundreds and hundreds of thousands. But the Jews on these holy days, the city would swell to millions of Jews. And so anyway, so the Temple Mount is just right over here. And now, step over here. We're going to basically just not walk on the cemetery because that's disrespectful, but there's stairs here. So we'll just step right up here. I just want to point some things out to you. Okay, so what do we have right here, right below us? That's the Garden of Gethsemane. The Garden of Gethsemane. See the church there? That's the Church of All Nations. See those blue domes? See the olive trees inside the fence? That is the Garden of Gethsemane. Right over here to your left a little bit is where the cave of Gethsemane was. You know what Gethsemane means? It's two words. It means oil press. Oil press. So that's where Jesus and his disciples were at. And then, of course, Jesus would come out a stone's throw. So they have the Garden of Gethsemane right here. And then up above Garden of Gethsemane, what mountain is that?
The Mount of Olives.
That's the Mount of Olives. The triumphal entry, the tree's kind of blocking a little ways, but do you see the stone walkway coming down? That is the triumphal entry. I want you to turn your heads this way, and we want to look at this gate. What gate is this? This is the Eastern Gate. It's a gate that goes in a long ways, and it's really quite elaborate inside. We'll be seeing that, Lord willing, when we tour the Temple Mount platform. We'll go up onto the Temple Mount platform. Absolutely amazing, amazing. What happens on the Temple Mount is God's laser focus, because that's where the temple was. And in the same way that the tabernacle, God's presence in a unique way inhabited that, and when it was built, it was filled with smoke. The same thing happened when the temple here Solomon dedicated. You remember what happened? The priests had to stop their service because the glory of the Lord filled it. And so when it talks about God's Shekinah glory leaving, it goes through the Eastern Gate because God is abandoning. But the Shekinah glory is going to come back when Christ comes back, okay? So anyway, this is the Eastern Gate, and I want you to look at some of the stones. We're going to see some up here. Let's step up here and see some of the stones. But I do want to point out that it's hard to see right here, but there's a extension that comes out. There was a tower over this way. So I'll be showing you the location of where Solomon's original Temple Mount platform was, because Solomon built the temple. He built a platform for it as well. Okay, well, let's step on over here. I want to show you some of these ancient stones that is very possible, very likely they date back to the time of Solomon or to Hezekiah, because once again, this wall here, although Suleiman repaired it, it's built upon the original Temple Mount platform walls. You can see over to your right there and kind of down, you can see as you get down, you're going to get big stones. You're going to get old stones. Okay, so we're going to do something very special. We got stairs going up here, so we can go up here. We're going to go up here and look at these stones. Okay, we're going to go up here and look at these ancient stones up here. Once again, we're walking on stairs, so no disrespect. Okay. We'll step on over here. Can you see these ancient stones? Look at them. See the boss? These are ancient stones. These are original stones. See this? These are original from the time of Solomon, Hezekiah, ancient stones. So when Solomon built the temple, because this is Mount Moriah, the same place that Abraham would come to offer his son, the same place that God offers his son. So it's a mountain. It was a threshing floor. Part of it was a threshing floor. So anyway, it's a mountain. So in order to build on a mountain, you have to build a platform. So Solomon built a raised platform, filled it in, and upon that he built the temple. When we're on the Temple Mount platform, Lord willing, in our tour, then we will be able to see where the Dome of the Rock is exactly over where the temples once stood, and the rock inside is exactly over where the Holy of Holies was.
So Nehemiah built on top of this?
Yes, Nehemiah would repair this. Yes. So once again, this eastern wall here hasn't moved over time. Why? Because the Kidron Valley is not nearly as deep as it was during the time of Christ and before that. It's been filled in. So it just goes down. So this is as far out as they could come, because when you get down, it's just so hard to fill in, and the construction is just really, the engineering is very difficult. Once again, this is the platform that King Solomon, King Hezekiah would have. These haven't changed. So once again, these stones have, what they have witnessed is, they witnessed Jesus coming in and out. They witnessed the triumphal entry. They witnessed the Garden of Gethsemane. They witnessed the Shekinah glory of God filling the temple. They've seen countless worshipers go through that gate, because it was a main access gate.
So you could easily say that even as Jesus, as a boy at 12 years old, probably...
Oh, yeah. The Jews had to make at least 3 pilgrimages, the males did, and they celebrated more. There was Hanukkah that they celebrated, and others. It's very likely if Jesus, died at 33, and he would go to the temple at least 5 times a year minimum. So 33 times 5, he came to Jerusalem at least over 150 times, probably more. Because his family was very faithful Jews. I mean, they were obedient to the faith that God had provided at that time. They were righteous before the Lord.
At that time, was it the only gate?
No. There were a number of different gates. This was the main gate from the east, but then you had, we'll be seeing it here shortly, you had the gates coming up from the south. You had the Holy Gates, we'll be looking at those. Then you had the Robinson's Arch Gate, and then you had the Barclay Gate, then you had another gate. So you had a lot of access to the Temple Mount. You had to. The Temple Mount could hold 200,000 to 300,000 worshipers. It's huge. It's equivalent to the size of 35 football fields, the Temple Mount that Herod built. Now, the Temple Mount that Solomon built measured 500 cubits by 500 cubits, roughly being around 862 feet by 862 feet square.
What would have been the common gate leading from Nazareth coming here where they would enter the city?
The most used was the southern area because the worshipers would mainly arrive there. It had the Pool of Siloam, which was huge and functioned as a mikveh, and then there were a lot of mikvehs at the southern stair area. The south, the Jordan Valley, they would come dominantly using that. But then, of course, Jesus lived in Nazareth, and so the worshipers from Nazareth, then they would walk the Samaria route. It was more on the upper part. The Jordan Valley was down lower. The Samaria path was more riding the ridge of the mountains. From here you would have Gibeah, you would have Shiloh, you would have Bethel, you would have Shechem, then the Galilee area. Well, let's continue on. Absolutely off the chart, amazing stuff. Really, really, really special. Make our way back down through the stairs here. We are going to walk around all of the city walls. We're going to end where we began. There's not one spot we're not going to see. And we're going to see some bonus stuff along the way. So I want to just pause here. You see that scaffolding hanging over the edge? Can you see a bend in the wall there? Can you see how it's going, then it kind of changes the angle? Can you see that? That is where then the Hasmoneans would add on to. So Solomon's platform, then it was quite big, is from there down to basically where that scaffolding is. 862 feet, roughly right in there. Okay, so right up in here, then we have this, I call it curious bend in the wall. I don't know why, but when you sight down it, you can see it really clear. We have some videos that show it, but you can see there's a bend in the wall. Then if you come over here, you're gonna see something very, very clear. It's just off the charts clear. Okay, let's just stop right here and let's look at this wall here. You see these stones over here? Do you see how they change? And do you see a line there? They're just totally different. They're not the same. From right here going over, what kind of stones are those? Herod, those are Herodian stones. This is what he added on to. To your right is what the Hasmoneans added onto. See their stones? See how it's similar but rougher? And then it's going to go over to just about where the scaffolding comes down, where the bend in the wall is. So the evidence that this is the Temple Mount platform is overwhelming. There's just really no one in their objective mind is going to dispute it. So you can see where Solomon's temple platform ends. You can see what the Hasmoneans add onto, and then you can see what Herod adds onto. The Hasmonean addition is going to be in about 140 BC. Herod's addition is going to be in 20 BC. So 120 years later, Herod's going to add on. And then before that is Solomon's, going way back to his time, 950 BC. So this is an old structure.
So would the temple in Jesus' time go to the very end right here, the corner?
Yeah, so Jesus is born, they believe now, in 4 BC, dies roughly in 30 AD. So yes, the Temple Mount that Herod enlarged, he enlarged it on 3 sides. We'll see it when we do the tour, but he enlarged it to the south, he enlarged it to the west, and he enlarged it to the north. He did not enlarge it to the east. It's never been enlarged to the east, ever. Why? We can see all these ancient stones.
So would there be a specific spot where Jesus was tempted by Satan?
It's believed it's on the pinnacle of the temple, so that would have been at the temple that existed during Jesus' time. Some have said maybe out over in here, but I think it's talking about the temple. I'll say as we're walking that in Herod's edition, because it was so far out, he did not fill it in with dirt. He did arches, so it's a whole bunch of arches inside to hold it up, because the idea was that if he filled it with dirt, it would just bust out the walls. Even though some of these stones, like this one right here, they're going like 6 to 8 feet deep in. Yeah, deep. The walls are thick here. Why? For the engineering. For those that say that this massive temple was down in the city of David, doesn't fit, and the Kidron Valley down there is so steep, you would have had to have hundreds and hundreds of feet up in the air. The engineering was just wouldn't have happened. Just too hard.
Is it hollow down in there?
Yeah, right now it's a mosque. It was called by the Crusaders Solomon's Stables because they did use it as stables, but it's all open underneath with arches. We can't go down under, unfortunately, but you can see photos of it. Okay, so now we are ending the eastern wall. Now we're going to be walking the southern wall. Now, so you can see on the map here, you can see where we're at. You can see the Temple Mount. So we started right up here. So we walked about half of it, about halfway done. Okay, well, we're going to continue on now. We're going to be seeing some very, very ancient ruins. We're going to be stepping over and looking at the city of David. We'll see the Gihon Spring. Right over here is the Kidron Valley to our left. We'll step over and look at it here in a moment. Okay. So we'll pause here for a moment. So this area here is what's called the Ophel. The Ophel was the space in between the Temple Mount and the city of David. The city of David is just right below us here. We're going to step over here in a moment and see it. Okay? So we have archaeology going back here to the time of Solomon. If you look at the southern wall there, do you see those 3 gates that are filled in, those 3 arches? Those are called the Hulda gates. And then over to our left, we'll see it in a moment, were then another access. So you had basically 2 main accesses on this southern wall. The Hulda gates was where the Jews would enter onto the temple. In Hebrew, you always go from the right to left, right? Okay, so they would enter on the right, go up to the temple, They would kind of walk up some stairs, and then they would exit over to our left on some stairs over there. Now, the only time that a person would enter through the exit is if they were in a state of mourning. And that let everybody know that this person was in a state of mourning, and they could show compassion upon them. Okay, so this is the southern areas. The stairs are also called the Rabbi Stairs. We'll be there later in our tour. Let's step across the road, and we're going to look at the Kidron Valley, and we're going to look at the city of David. Okay, this is a very, very special here. This would have been the edge of the city of David. This would have been the eastern side of the city of David that goes all the way down. Do you see the bedrock down there? The tomb of David is down there. Do you see this building here with this red tiled roof? That is the Gihon Spring. Okay, so in the time of Hezekiah, even the Canaanites, they had two walls coming down and then a wall here. So just imagine 3 walls, and that protected their water source, because attacking armies, you dry up their water source as history. So there was a fortified wall that came down over that. So you can see some of the stairs and shade there. Right above that was where David's palace was. So this is the city of David following this ridge, quite small.
So is that this channel, this spring that goes underground?
Yes, yeah.
And it came up inside the gate from right here?
So originally it was a spring that would just run down the hill, okay? But they were able to capture that. The Canaanites, they built a fortified wall around it coming down the hill, and then they keep the water inside. And then they build a tunnel. Today it's called the dry tunnel. We'll walk it on our tour. Some of us will. Some might go through the Hezekiah's tunnel. Today it's a dry tunnel, but the Canaanites built it. Then they would take that water and then they would irrigate. Hezekiah in 700 BC, when the Assyrians have already taken the north, they've already taken the south, and they're on the attack, then he is going to enlarge the walls, and he's going to fortify even more the defense structure, and then he's going to dig that tunnel called Hezekiah's tunnel that drops about a foot, 30 centimeters, within a distance of 1,500 feet, a large distance. And so then that's going to put the water down to the pool of Siloam, which at that time was inside the city walls. So during Hezekiah's time, then the city walls are going to come from over here, and they're going to run right along here, down to the pool of Siloam. They're going to encompass all of the western hill. The city at the time of Hezekiah was at least twice as big as it is today. It's called the Broad Wall. We'll be seeing that on our tour later on. He built this huge wall rapidly because you had all these refugees from the north, because the cities were falling. They fled and came to Jerusalem. So he built this huge protection wall, enlarged the city, doubled it even more to house all these people.
The channel that David and his army went up into?
Yeah, they conquered it by going up through there, and they got into the city that way.
Do they let people walk through there?
Yeah, we'll do that. When the whole team's here, we'll be doing a tour of the whole city of David. Yeah, we'll walk, those who want to walk the Hezekiah's tunnel can. Our tours are 13 days. We're going to see a lot. Most tours maybe going to last maybe 8 days, 7 or 8 days, because sometimes that's all people can handle. And if that's all they can handle, bless their heart. But we figure, people are going to make all this effort to come to the Holy Land, and flying is a fixed cost anyway. So the only cost that rises really is your lodging, food, obviously. But it's like, hey, if I'm going to come, I want to see as much as I can. Okay, we're going to step across the road again here. We're going to pause right here. So do you see the stairs going up to the wall? You see over to the corner, there's part of an arch there. That was part of the original. Hold the gates. This stuff that's built out was during the Crusader period. This was built out, but the wall used to go straight. Right above the wall is the Al-Aqsa Mosque, okay? Anyway, those stairs were the stairs going up to the temple. They were also called the rabbi stairs. That's where the rabbis would teach their disciples. We'll be seeing that on a different day. It's really amazing. We'll be doing a faith lesson on discipleship in the time of Christ.
So with all this archaeological findings have been here at the time of Christ?
Yes. What they've done is they've gone down in time. So during the time of Christ, there was probably stuff during Solomon's time that was buried, because that's, roughly 1,000 years before. But yes, there's stairs there where Jesus would have walked. And a lot of this, yes, would have been here. These mikvahs and stuff were here.
So apart from those other 3 gates, they probably had 3 more older gates.
They believe there was just 2.
Right.
Yeah. So once again, you can see going on to the temple, on this side, you're going to see more accesses. On the eastern side, it was mainly the eastern gate, but that was the more noble entrance, you might say, so to speak, because it's from the east. So then again, the city of David is to our left, south.
And he makes it to look over the Kidron Valley.
Yes. Yes, and the reason why the city of David was called that is because David conquered, obviously. But before that, the Jebusites were there, the Canaanites. In the Jebusite period, David's time, the Kidron Valley was to the east, deep ravine. To the south, southwest was the Hinnom Valley, deep ravine. And then right through here was called the Tyropian Valley. So the city of David was quite narrow, built on this peninsula with a water source, very defensible, except for the north, obviously. But that's why it was there. The city of David was not that big. And of course, David's palace would be on the upper part.
Where it is now.
Where it is now. And we'll be seeing that on a different day. Okay, so you can look here and you can see some of these lower stones. You see how they're different than the upper stones. These are older stones. And of course, this wall here, even though it uses ancient stones, these stones were placed later period in time, because this wasn't the original wall line. The original wall line that Hezekiah did, once again, enclosed the city of David, much bigger. Right over to our left, we can't see it, but it's called the Givati excavation site. It's probably Israel's most intensive excavation happening today. It used to be a parking lot, decided to excavate it, and they have found stuff going all the way back to the time of David and the Canaanites. We'll kind of gradually go over here to our left. We're coming now to another gate that is an old gate, although it's been redone here recently. It's called the Dung Gate. Okay, so we'll pause right here. And so what we have in front of us is the Dung Gate. Why called the Dung Gate? There was a drainage channel going from the Pool of Siloam, roughly just to the right of it, all the way up to here. Because in ancient times, this was called the Tyropian Valley. There was a valley here. It's all been filled in. Okay, and so this was the lower part. And so this is why they would use this as the waste to go out, and also because now they can send all their waste just down into the Hinnom Valley, opposite the direction of the prevailing winds. And so part of the Kidron Valley, part of the Hinnom Valley is where you would have like Gehenna, because that's where they would burn all of their waste and stuff. So the Dung Gate was named so. Now this Dung Gate here has been opened up and enlarged in recent years. Okay, now what we're going to do is something very special. We're going to go in and go to our left, and we're going to see part of the Cardo Minor. Okay, let's go ahead and go on in. As we're headed that way, though, I want to show you something very special over here to our right first. Where you can look over the edge. Today, this is called Davidson's Archaeological Park. So we have the southern wall of the Temple Mount. Then this here is the western wall. Now farther up ahead is where they pray. But right here, you can see there was an arch here. Can you see on the wall there some stones that look like they're starting to make an arch? That was called Robinson's Arch because there was a gentleman archaeologist that discovered that in the 1800s, so they named it after him. But that was huge, and it was an access as well. And then on each side of it, today, I don't know if we can see it, when we do our tour, we will be able to. We can actually see the road that Jesus would have walked on, and we can see the stones that the Romans threw down, and they've actually crushed the road. But there were shops on each side, and then at the corner up there, they found a stone. It was called the Trumpeter's Stone. So on the corner, then, you would have a priest who would blow the trumpet to announce to everyone beginning of the holidays, the Jewish holidays, like Sabbath, these different holidays. So that meant that the shops were to stop, shut down, because now we're entering into the Sabbath.
Todd,
Yeah.
the two arches over here?
Okay. So the original Temple Mount platform went straight. All of this addition, all of those buildings that extend out from the wall, Crusader period. Crusader. That's why you can see, this is one thing we'll point out on our tour, that Roman arches are round, Crusader arches are pointed. So we know that that's Crusader, plus archaeology confirms that.
Do you know if the stairs going on the outside wall were dated back to you by chance?
Everything out is new, dating either to the Crusader, Ottoman period, but later on. So none of that would have existed during the time of Jesus. It would have been a straight wall. We know that not only because of all the archaeology, but then the entrances, they covered up part of the entrances. Okay, exciting, awesome stuff to see. All right, we're going to walk over here now. We're going to see part of the Cardo Minor. So we'll pause here. Right below us, what is this? This is the Cardo Minor. So we talked about when we were at the Damascus Gate, there were two Cardos. One was the Cardo Maximus. It runs up to the west of us. But this was the Cardo Minor. It ran down by the Temple Mount because Hadrian, once again, built a temple on the Temple Mount, right where the Jewish temple was. And so this was an access here to service that. There are 4 main roads in streets in Jerusalem that still follow the time of Hadrian.
This trench here, would that be the same drainage that connects to the other one?
The other one comes out a little bit over here, but yeah, they had multiple ones, different ones at different time periods.
The one that the Jews hid in would be that one?
Yeah.
Those stones on the floor is from the time of Hadrian?
Yes, time of Hadrian, yeah. But you can see the old original ones there. Those are from the time of Hadrian, 135 roughly AD. Okay, well, we're going to continue on this amazing walk around the old city of Jerusalem, seeing so many amazing things. Of course, here to our right, all ancient stuff dating way back. So now we are on the southern side of the old city walls, as we mentioned. Now from here, we're going to be doing some hiking. We're going to be going up significantly, okay? We're going to step over to our left and look out over the western hill of the old city that Hezekiah would have encompassed. Okay, so let's pause here for a moment. Over to our right, do you see this church that is tanned with a blue-gray dome? This is the church. It's built over where the house of Caiaphas was. So it's believed there that Jesus was held in a dungeon overnight, and that's where he appeared before the high priest Caiaphas and Annas, the high priest. And so there's a dungeon there that we'll be going and looking into. We'll be seeing all about that. A lot of evidence there supporting that. Okay, we're going up ahead a little more. So now we're going to head on over right along the walls here. Of course, you can see, once again, a sign here of where we're at. So we can see here on the sign that we started off. You can see where the dot is, where we're at here now. So we're making our way around the old city, seeing all the gates and all the amazing sights around it. So up to our left up here is what today is called Mount Zion, partly because it's by the Zion Gate. But in biblical times, all of the city of David was called Mount Zion to begin with. Then as the city expanded, the term Mount Zion would then apply to the expansion as well. Like I say, this side of the wall here is more of a hike. You kind of get a workout going up on this side. As the mountains surround Jerusalem, so I will surround and protect my people, says the Lord. City on the hill. Jesus used that term once, didn't he? About us, that our lights were to be like what? We're to be a light on a hill, city on a hill, so to speak. So in the same way that Jerusalem in God's presence was a pronouncement to the nations that God's presence resided, so in the same way now we are the temple. We're the temple of the Holy Spirit, and we are now a smaller version of this whole picture. Now we take to the nations. A lot of imagery that is found in the Bible that really is connected to the Old Testament. I've said many times that I believe one of the failures today in the church and even among believers is a lack of knowledge of the Old Testament. Because if you don't understand the Old Testament, you don't understand the New, because the New is the fulfillment of all of those things. And so all of the pictures and imagery in the Old Testament is fulfilled in the New Testament. And so if you don't understand it, you don't understand Christ's sacrifice fully. I mean, can you imagine having to make all these animal sacrifices? That came out of your livelihood. I mean, if you were a goat farmer or sheep farmer, I mean, that came out of your livelihood. So when you sin, you have to do all this stuff. Today, Jesus pays for all that, right? We don't have to get an animal. We don't have to go to the priest. We don't have to get a sacrifice, all of that stuff. So it's really important to know our Bibles, the Old Testament especially. Just point out this to you here. There are a lot of countries that come over and help Israel do their archaeological digs. Here's one of them from the University of North Carolina. And of course, we can see what they've done. They've outlined what they've discovered. Some of the archaeological findings here are really quite amazing. There is a layer of ash, Babylonian arrowheads, Iron Age pottery, and rare jewelry clearly confirms the 586 Babylonian destruction of Jerusalem described in the Book of Kings. As I mentioned earlier, they calculate that only 2% of Israel has been excavated. There are absolutely remains everywhere. I mean, we see this, right? What's underneath? What have we been walking on? We've been walking over ruins. We walked over ruins all day. We're almost to the Zion Gate, and over to our left, we will see some stuff we'll point out to you. Okay, let's step on over here. A short distance that way is the upper room. Okay. Right here is the Zion Gate. This is Zion Gate. Can you see all the bullet holes in it? That is from the 1947 and 1967 wars that Israel had. Let's just walk in it and see it, and then we'll come back out. So this gate right here will go into the Armenian quarter of the old city. Okay, so this is a main road going down to the Temple Mount area. And if you go to the left, you can walk along and go to the Jaffa Gate area. You can see the sign from both ways. Anyway, you can see some of the Arabic writing on it. The gate was built over an earlier gate by Suleiman the Magnificent. Once again, he's the one that built these newer gates. But they were built over, a lot of them are built over original gates, just redone. Okay, so once again, here is the Zion Gate from the inside. We're going to go out of it, then we're going to go along the western side of the old city. And we're going to be seeing something very, very special where it's believed that Christ was condemned to crucifixion. Everything's there, so let's go see this. Okay, so the western side of the old city is coming up here shortly. It's a lot leveler here, so a little bit easier walking. But yeah, the area by Pilate's palace where it's believed that Jesus was condemned to crucifixion, where the trial took place, is absolutely amazing. All the evidence is there. It just fits the biblical narrative just so well. This is going to be special. Here we are. We're going to be looking at this. We're going to be looking at it. So we're going to pause up here and give you the lay of the land. Then we're going to walk up through it. Step on over here. We're going to walk up this same steps wall structure that was here during the time of Herod and Pilate. Like I say, when we do our tour, we're going to be spending more time on this, but Pilate's palace was right here. So you see the minaret there? You see that tall spiral? from there all the way down here was Herod's palace. It was huge. It was in 3 sections, had barracks, the soldiers, it had an intersection garden, and then his palace. So this was Herod's palace. But then after he died, the succeeding governors would stay here. It was the place to be for the governors when they came to Jerusalem, like say fortified. So what we have right here is a gate complex. Okay, so you're coming in through these walls, and then we're going to see the stone pavement. We're going to see the door. We're going to see the bema seat where he sat and where Jesus would have came in and out. Okay, so the crowds would be here. It was early in the morning, so there wasn't a huge crowd because it was a mock trial. So we walked up here, crowds out here. These are the original stones going up. All this is original. All this was buried until after the 1960s. In the 70s, they excavated this whole wall and uncovered all this. So it was buried. Okay, so the problem with archaeology is it's destructive in and of itself because you have to remove things to go down. So right here is still evidence of the stone pavement. Okay, this came out and filled this in. Now, you see these stairs right here? Those went into the palace, Pilate's palace. And so it's been filled in since the time of Jesus because Suleiman the Great rebuilt the walls. But you have these stairs going up. You'd have had a platform here, then coming out here, and then another upper platform that we'll see in a moment. But right here would have been the entryway door. Right here, these are steps that Jesus walked on, right there. Came in and out of the palace several times. He would talk with Pilate, come out before the crowd, in and out. Then he was flogged and stuff, then he came out. Then he came out with his crown of thorns. So this is happening. He's going in and out. The Jews, this says they wouldn't go in because they didn't want to be unclean. Why would they be unclean? Because inside the palace were all of these idols and everything. So right here was a door, and Jesus would come in and out of here. And then you can come on up here a little bit. You see these stones here? This is from the time of Jesus. These are original. Okay, this is from the time of Herod. Okay, they were all buried for a long time. In fact, if you look up on the wall, you see kind of a lighter color and a darker color. The lighter color was underground. That's why it's lighter. It was like this for many, many, many years. And then walk up here. This stone right here, nobody really realizes how valuable this stone is. It used to set up right here because the bema seat was right up here. It had posts going up to kind of cover. It was kind of an archway out here, kind of a pavilion. So this sat right up there. Someone pushed it down. That is very valuable right there. That's evidence of the bema seat up here, part of it. And as you come up here, then you see more of the stone pavement right up here. See more of the evidence of the stone pavement. So you had kind of a lower platform, then you had an upper platform. This was the upper platform. Now, right here was the bema seat. What does bema mean? Judgment. This is the judgment seat. So Pilate would judge people. So Jesus comes in and out, and then Pilate would be seated here. So when Pilate makes his formal announcement of Christ being handed over to be crucified, washing his hands, that's going to take place right here. Once again, that stone that's down there used to sit out here on part of this judgment seat. Kind of a throne, you might say, so to speak. It's all right here. And it says that then Simon of Cyrene, what did he do? Carried Jesus's cross. It says he was coming in from the open country. This is the place. Some believe that the judgment took place at the Antonia Fortress. But the Antonia Fortress really didn't face the open country. So anyway, all of the evidence is here. This was hidden for many, many, many years, and then recently to be exposed, to be excavated, and it's just absolutely amazing. You have everything here that the Bible talks about necessary. The scripture talks about the palace, and then we have eyewitnesses and writers that tell us that Herod's palace was used by the succeeding governors. So this would have been Pilate's palace, his headquarters, so to speak.
And these walls are the same walls.
Yeah, now this has been rebuilt. Down there is original, but this here has been rebuilt by Suleiman, but you have original Herodian stones down there, and then you have the original platform stones here.
And it filled out like the same.
Yeah, that would have been exactly the same, yeah. Most likely.
Can go up there?
Yeah, that's the ramparts walk. You have to do the ramparts walk to get up there. Yeah, and then of course there's a spot in the Tower of David where you can actually go, they've excavated it, that shows the foundations of Pilate's palace.
Inside?
Yeah, inside. I'll point it out to you when we get up here. It's up here a ways. Amazing, huh? Absolutely amazing. Our tour is almost over. It's almost over. We're almost to the Jaffa Gate where we started. But we want to go down here, see a little bit more of this, and then show you where Pilate's palace was and where the archaeological evidence was for that. I'll say this about this site here, is that when it was uncovered, they found so much evidence here, but this site hasn't officially been published. All the evidence is here, and Shimon Gibson, one of the archaeologists, it probably will be him who does publish it, but it's all here. You can see it, it's all here. And he verified, and he firmly believes that this is the spot. This is where the trial took place. So the traditional Via Dolorosa, bless their hearts, that was mainly started by the Crusaders. They didn't even know this existed because it was underground. And so anyway, the traditional Via Dolorosa, great to do. We take people on it and everything, but this right here, and when we do our tour of this, when everyone's here, we will actually walk the new Via Dolorosa to Golgotha.
So all these steps are original?
All this, yep. Yeah, we come all the way up. This was all built by Herod and then used by Pilate. So yeah, this is all original. So the Bema seat's right up here, right? The judgment seat, right up there. This is where the crowd's at. And what are they going to yell from here? Crucify him. Crucify him. We have no other king but
Caesar.
For a Jew to say that, it's absolutely a declaration that God is not our king. It was an embracing of Caesar as our king, because Caesar set himself up as God and he was like a god. So we have no king. God's not our king. Caesar is our king. That's anathema. For a Jew to say that is just total rejection of who they are and what they believe. But here it is. It's all right there. It's all right there. So the northern stuff that we're going to see up here in a moment, this was part of a fortification. It's called the Tower of David, but it was a fortification place that was part of actual Herod's palace. So here's a great little history, and we'll be talking about this on our tour a lot. Really good to compartmentalize the historical periods, the basic historical periods of Israel. You first start off in the Canaanite period. It's going to last up to roughly around, let's say, the time of David, although I guess you would say that Abraham lived during the Canaanite period. So the Canaanite period is going to go up to about 1200 BC, and then David's going to come on the scene, King Saul, and then that's going to last, and then you're going to have your, what they call the First Temple period. That's up until 586 BC, but in 722, then the Assyrians come and take the northern tribes, and in 586, they come and take the southern tribes, and then they conquer Israel, destroy the temple, and then they come back and rebuild it. And then you have the Persian period, then you have the Hellenistic, the Greek period, and the Roman period, and the Byzantine period, and the earliest Islamic and Crusader and Mamluk and Ottoman, and then you can just go right on up to the British Mandate and everything. But roughly from 586 BC, you'll have a brief period, the Hasmonean period, that doesn't appear here. It's before the Roman period. The Hasmonean is from 165 to 63 BC, roughly. That's when Israel will get its country back. And then they have self-rule, and then the Romans will come in, and then from there until 1948, they are not going to be a nation. And of course, Jesus prophesied in roughly 30 AD when he comes down the Mount of Olives that not one stone will be left upon another. And that did happen in 70 AD, 40 years later. And but he, all throughout the Old Testament, there's prophecy of how he's going to bring him back. And God has a plan for Israel. There's a branch of theology called replacement theology that believes the church replaces Israel. But it's really hard to biblically defend that because you have so many passages in the Old Testament that's talking about how God is going to deal with Israel. He has a plan for Israel. Right now, we're in the middle of a war. Everything seems out of control. Everything seems like it's wrong. But all is well in the kingdom of God. Everything is marching perfectly towards his sovereign plan. Not one thing is out of place. Not one detail is out of place. It's all fulfilling.
That was really good.
So once again, all of this is Herod's palace. He built 3 towers. Part of one still remains in the Tower of David complex. But so his palace ran all along here. But see that one column there? On the other side of that column, then what's called the Kishle, where you can actually go down and see the ruins of the palace, the foundations of the palace. So Herod did this, roughly 2,000 years ago. So before that, there's even archaeology going back before that. Well, let's make our way up to the Jaffa Gate here. We're almost done. A couple more things to show you. I want to show you some amazing places up here by the Jaffa Gate. You see these angled walls here? There was a moat that ran around here for defense purposes, a moat. They filled it in. I'm going to walk up here and we're going to show you some of the line today where that would have been at. Yeah, so right up here as we're approaching the Jaffa Gate, you're going to see there's a huge wide opening in the wall, right? Well, that was opened up by the Ottomans so that a German, we'll call him Kaiser, like president, emperor, could enter in. They wanted for it to be prestigious. But then when General Allenby in World War I, he, instead of riding into Old City Jerusalem on a horse, he dismounted because a horse was a symbol of like authority and power. He wanted to show humility that he was entering into a holy place. So originally these walls were all together, then they opened them up. Of course, then the Jaffa Gate is right over there. So let's step over here now inside. I want to show you the line of where the moat, you see the moat right here? See the wall of the moat? It comes right around here. See this line right here? See this line? They have preserved where the moat would have been. You see this line right here? Yeah, and filled all that in. That was all been filled in.
So basically that was the entrance.
Yeah, yeah. So let's step over here briefly. We're gonna wrap things up, but there's one last thing I want to show you. Okay, well, this is the last thing we're going to show you on the tour. We're back at the Jaffa Gate. So this is going to be the end of our tour, but there's one last thing I want to show you is underneath the bridge here. You can still access it. You can walk right down. There is remains of the aqueduct that Solomon built and then was renovated to feed water. It was an immaculate aqueduct system, wasn't exposed, fit all together. It was made out of limestone, came from Bethlehem, which is about 6 to 8 miles away, all the way to the Temple Mount. And it fed the Temple Mount. The Temple Mount had tons of huge cisterns. It had the pools of Bethesda right there close. They have found cisterns underneath the Temple Mount that are just massive in size. Had a lot of water going to it because for the sacrificial systems, they had to have it. Then if they needed living water, well, this would have been living water, but then they had the pools of Bethesda, which were living water. Well, we did great, huh? That was awesome, wasn't it? We learned a lot, we saw a lot. So thank you for participating. Thank you for watching, those that watched by video. May God richly bless you.